Shayna Seymour.
Good morning, everyone. Wow, look at this beautiful crowd. Welcome to the 50th anniversary of the Martin Luther King Memorial Breakfast, right? I am thrilled to be here with all of you once again to celebrate this special occasion. Happy birthday, Dr. King. I'd like to kick off today's event by introducing our distinguished guest, the Bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of Massachusetts, the Right Reverend Gail Harris. Bishop Sudarshana Devadar from the New England Conference of the United Methodist Church. The co-chairs of the 50th MLK Memorial Breakfast, Reverend Dr. Monrell Williams and Reverend Dr. Jay Williams. Representing the 2nd Suffolk District, the first Latina State Senator, Sonia Chang Diaz. Boston's first Black District Attorney, representing Suffolk County, Rachel Rollins. There's a lot of love here. I love this. The passionate and bold U.S. Senator Edward Markey. The people's lawyer, Attorney General Maura Healey. Massachusetts' first Black Congresswoman, Ayanna Pressley. The great mayor of Boston. The great mayor of Boston, Mayor Marty Walsh. The leader of Massachusetts, Governor Charlie Baker. Our keynote speaker, the presiding bishop and primate of the Episcopal Church, the Most Reverend Michael Curry. If everyone could please rise and join our choir for the Black National Anthem, lift every voice and sing, and please remain standing for the invocation that will follow.
Every
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Reverend Gail Harris.
God is here, so let us pray. O Holy One, we gather on this 50th anniversary of the Martin Luther King prayer breakfast, and we gather in what seems to be a weary year, with many silent tears from violence and war, from the mendacity and the mediocrity of our civil discourse, from an administration that perpetuates injustice and bigotry, arrogance and ignorance, enmity and humiliation. And it seems at times the truth and our principles are under a guillotine of political expediency. Yes, we feel weary, O Lord, weary of policies that undermine the poor and cage brown children at our borders. But we do gather to remember your prophet and servant, Martin, who preached the reign of peace, justice, and equality, and reminding us that the arc of history is moving us always towards justice. He reminded us that we cannot and must not remain in the valley of despair, hopelessness, or helplessness. And so we remember and celebrate so that we might again be inspired to go to the mountaintop as he did, to broaden our minds and our vision to see hope, that we might work for justice. So Lord, be with us to renew our strength, our commitment, and the confidence in our hearts and minds in order to discover new opportunities and coalitions that urgently strive for justice. Yes, we thank you for the witness of Martin, whose life reflects the words in these times, I don't feel no ways tired. We've come too far from where we started. Martin knew that the road would not be easy, but God, we believe that you have not brought us this far to leave us. For you, O Holy One, gracious creator of all, you call us to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with you and each other in peace. Amen.
Well, let's give it up for David Coleman and the Confirmation Gospel Choir for that amazing performance. And on a side note, they just performed with Mariah Carey just a few weeks ago in Boston as part of her All I Want for Christmas tour, which I heard was fantastic. And of course, we want to thank Bishop Gail Harris for her moving prayer. Today's sold out event, which I just learned is the first sold out event in 3 decades. Amazing. We hope that you will be inspired by remarks from the elected official, the drum major honorees, and from our keynote speaker, the Right Reverend Bishop Curry. We hope that you can get social with us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter by using the hashtag MLKBreakfastBOS, and our handle is the same, MLKBreakfastBOS. Now I'd like to welcome to the stage the co-chairs of the MLK Memorial Breakfast, Reverend Dr. Monrell Williams and Reverend Dr. Jay Williams.
Good morning. My name is Monrell Williams. I am the rector of St. Cyprian's Episcopal Church in Roxbury. On behalf of the Breakfast Committee, St. Cyprian's Episcopal Church, and Union United Methodist Church, we thank you for being here this morning for our 50th anniversary. Because of Dr. King, we have a platform to motivate and activate change, and it's our turn. Dr. King was the passionate voice that inspired people all over the world. The power of his words resonated because they were spoken out of an unwavering belief in freedom and justice, love, equality, and opportunity for all. On our 50th anniversary, people from all walks of life reaffirm our commitment to Dr. King's ideals. King believed that our destinies are all intertwined, and he knew that our hopes and our dreams are really all the same. And he challenged us to see how we all are more alike than we are different. And I want to take this opportunity to thank the dignitaries here with us today. As public officials and advocates, you have a unique role to play and can make an impact on actions. They will remind you and inspire you with King's mission. And I thank you all for all you have done and continue to do. Because of Dr. King's influence, not only for minorities, but also for all people, we today observe his legacy.
Come on and put your hands together. Come on, you can make more noise than that. You look good in this place. As we shape a new future together, good morning. I am Jay Williams. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And I am the lead pastor of Union United Methodist Church in the South End of Boston. For over 200 years, Union has strived to be the beloved community, a trailblazing church shaped by the ideals of unconditional love, radical inclusion, and justice for all. On Sundays, I'm humbled to stand in Union's pulpit with my love and partner, Robert, and I'm honored to stand here today, particularly because Union's first pastor, Reverend Samuel Snowden, was a former enslaved African-turned-abolitionist. I stand here today because he preached and embodied a message of liberation and stood up against oppressions that keep some with so much and others with still so little. I don't know about you, but this time of the year I get a little bit irritated with all the cute sound bites and nice quotes of King's words that in reality water down and dilute the power and the potency of the principles for which he stood. King's vision, you see, is so much more than a mere dream. He embodied principles that he learned as a Baptist preacher, committed to the good news of the kingdom of God preached by Jesus, that impoverished brown Jewish rabbi living in Palestine under the rule of the Roman Empire. Yes, King embodied principles that he practiced as a member, as am I, of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, with his tireless commitment to combating inequality, injustice, and inequity. Yes, King embodied the principles he stood on and marched for, was jailed for, and struggled for each day of his all too short but still extraordinarily powerful life. You see, when he says so brilliantly that in a real sense all life is interrelated, all are caught up in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. He says, I can never be what I ought to be until you are who you ought to be, and can never be what you ought to be until I am who I ought to be. You see, when he says this, he ties your story to my story. As a black, queer man raised in the ghettos of Buffalo, New York, he ties the way I love to the ways you love. My soul to your spirit, my life to yours. So yes, the movements for civil rights and black lives and equity and women's equality and adequate protection for trans and queer people are interrelated and interconnected in the pursuit of intersectional justice and equity. So beloved, we must walk together as peoples from all walks of life, male and female and non-binary, black and brown and white and Latinx, Asian and indigenous, young and more seasoned, economically stable and economically struggling, transgender and cisgender, her, him, and they. differently abled, physically challenged, straight, gay, lesbian, queer, and allies. We must keep standing. We must keep walking. And we must keep marching and struggling together. Because in the end, the only way that we move the needle is if we move forward together. Let it be so. Amen.
Bless me.
just me. That was incredible. And thank you, Father Manuel and Pastor Jay. In remembrance of his profound and inspirational virtues, we look to do as Dr. King did while he was with us. On the day that we remember Dr. King's battle for injustice, diversity, inclusion, consider what you can do to continue his legacy. Joining us on stage for a discussion about this year's theme, The Struggle Continues, Moving Forward Together, please welcome Mayor Marty Walsh, Senator Ed Markey, Governor Charlie Baker, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, and our moderator, Barry Gaither. A little bit about Mr. Gaither. Since 1969, he has been director and curator of the Museum of Afro-American Artists in Roxbury, which he founded, and special consultant at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. Barry Gaither is active in the National Museum community. He served as perennial chairman for the National Endowment for the Arts, and he served on former President George W. Bush's advisory board. Barry Gaither and our esteemed guest, the stage is yours.
These are challenging times, and we have large issues in front of us, and we have the model of the ideas and vision of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King and of Coretta Scott King, and we have the model of their lives, which were applied efforts. One of the things that was very important to Dr. King was holding politicians accountable for fostering humane values. So with that in mind, we've picked some questions. And I want to start with the very first one. How do we recommit to struggling for economic and social justice and for equality in our society?
Nice.
Who wants to take it?
Well, let me first of all just thank everyone for being here at this historic breakfast. It's always great to see such a large crowd here. So thank you to the organizers, the servers, and everyone who put today together for us. I appreciate it. We should thank the servers. I think as the mayor, I think that we start in our own community first. I think we have to start in our own communities throughout the entire city and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I think that we have to continue to keep Dr. King's message at the forefront. I've said this more than one time, I think we've all said it, that Dr. King's words are as true today as they were when he first spoke them. In all of what he said, his teaching and his preaching. We have an opportunity in Boston. We're going to host the NAACP convention in July here in Boston, and I think there's an opportunity not just to have an event for 4 days and not have a conversation, but have conversations leading up to the convention and have conversations when the convention leaves. So I think that's the way to do, start in our own communities.
Who else would like to jump into the fray?
Okay, echoing the sentiments of the mayor at first, as someone who was a hotel worker for 6 years and who knows what it is for people to look over you and to look through you and to not recognize the contributions of the service industry, working men and women, I do want to just take a moment to pay tribute to our wait staff. Again, this is a tradition I look forward to every year that my husband and I participate in, and a historic convening, a historic faith convening. And so I do want to thank our clergy, both on the dais who made this event possible and in the room. And in thinking of that African proverb, when you pray, move your feet, I want to acknowledge and congratulate today's honorees who are moving their feet in the pursuit in the name of justice every day. So congratulations to all of our honorees. So I thought it was important to center waitstaff because one of the things that frustrates me when we talk about the civil rights movement is, one, we bookend it as if we're not still in it. The same is true when we talk of abolition. I'm still an abolitionist because my people still are not free. And I mean that in every way, not only because of the new Jim Crow and mass incarceration, but because we don't have economic justice. And if you didn't know any better, since people tend to reduce the civil rights movement, one, to speak of it in past tense, two, to make it one digestible soundbite that would lead you to believe that Medgar died and Martin marched and Rosa sat and John Lewis crossed a bridge and suddenly we were free. And we know that's not the case. So what is it going to take? It's going to take for us to do what Dr. King intended to do, was not to be boiled down to one speech. And the reminder that the March on Washington, which is so often evoked, was about economic justice and jobs. It was about the working man and woman. It was about the fight for dignified wages and dignified work and dignified lives. And so what is it going to take for us to realize racial justice, for us to do some truth-telling about the fact that there is an absence of it, and that the federal government and lawmakers played a role in creating it because of short-sighted, discriminatory politics. So what it is going to take is for us to continue to pray, continue to move our feet, and continue to demonstrate radical love through radical legislating and truth-telling. So, in summary, it's going to take political, it's going to take political will and courage. That's it. And all of you.
So can I build a little bit on that?
Yes, please.
My good friend, Robert Lewis, who's one of the award winners here today, Robert always said to me, the most important thing you have to do is show up. And I took that one to heart. And I got to tell you, having listened to the confirmation gospel choir today, I'm reminded once again that every time my wife and I go to a black church, we have way more fun than we have when we go to our own church. But one of the first things we did when we took office back in 2015 was we scheduled regular meetings with the Black and Latino Legislative Caucus. And we didn't just do them for a couple of weeks. We've been meeting with them every 90 days for 5 years. And for those 5 years, we meet, we talk, we discuss, and then we do stuff. And that organization and that group has had a huge influence on many of the decisions we've made as an administration. And it's part of the reason why we created a Black Advisory Commission and a Latino Advisory Commission, why we asked them to go out and talk to folks in those communities that they were from and that they represented as part of our administration. And when they came back to us with their recommendations, we baked them into our budget proposals, and then we advocated for them around workforce development, job training, economic development, and education, and then we got them passed and implemented. And I think one of the things you have to do to recommit to this is to acknowledge that we have a long way to go. And for those of you who may not be as familiar with some of the issues around federal policy and discrimination, I recommend a book for you called The Color of Law, which lays out in stark terms how federal housing policy absolutely discriminated against people and communities of color right up until the 1960s and beyond. And it was my conversations with the Black and Latino Caucus that led to us putting $85 million into a home ownership program that's directed primarily at communities of color as an attempt on our part to start to redress what clearly was a terrible, terrible act of economic violence that was committed against communities and people of color for decades here in the United States. You got to show up. And if you don't show up, you don't hear from the people you need to hear from, you don't learn from them, and you don't have an opportunity to do and pursue policies that will help make their lives and their communities stronger and better.
Right.
Now, Dr. King was very involved in challenging at every level, including the federal level, so I'd really be pleased to hear some more comments on the federal place in all of this.
Well, we can't have a just society until we admit that we do not have a just society. That has to be the first acknowledgement of all of us. And we have to have a conversation about reparations. We have to have that discussion
Absolutely.
in our society. It is time for us to have a national debate on this. The truth is that in many ways, we have just substituted the cells of slave ships for the cells of prisons in our country. We imprisoned 2 million African-American young men in the crack cocaine war on drugs. We did not give them treatment, we gave them incarceration. We owe an apology to those 2 million African-American young men. And we have to talk about reparations, about expunging their records, ensuring that they can get the jobs that they deserve in our society. We have to abolish private prisons in our country.
That's
we can't
right.
make a business out of incarcerating
That's right.
black and brown people in our country. You cannot have a just society if a black a man and woman is 5 times more likely to go to prison than a white man and women in our society. We have to end that. You cannot have a just society when a black woman is 3 times more likely to die in pregnancy than a white woman in our society. You have to admit these things. You have to accept the fact that we still live in an unjust and an unfair society. Martin Luther King used to talk about radical love. What we need in our country is radical reform. We have to match the love which he called us to do with federal laws that change, and you cannot make America great again by making America hate again. You cannot have a president who is saying that black and brown people are not equal, are not entitled to the same rights as white people in our society.
The struggle that Dr. King passed to us is a generational struggle. Each round of us have to move that forward in some way. And over the last decade and a half, some new language has appeared flagging old problems. Black Lives Matter is one piece of that new language. Me Too is another piece of that new language. How can we respond to these kinds of concerns? And especially, how can we respond to them in programmatic ways or in legal ways that are products that make change?
I think what happens is a lot of people, a lot of elected officials and government falls back into a policy, a press release, talking about the policy and how do you move that policy forward. And I think we all have good intention when we do that. But I think it's acknowledging that what Dr. King spoke about and Black Lives Matter movement, Me Too movement, it's, as I said earlier, it's all still very real today. And I think it's, as I listen to the senator speak and talk about what's happening in Washington and what's not happening and listen to everyone up here talking, it really starts with you. It starts with people. You think about a movement. You think about how do you create something. The Women's March in January of 2016, we were preparing for 65,000 people to come to Boston Common. 175,000 people showed up. And when you think about that for a minute, you think about what happened after that. There's still been a lot of work going on, and I think that as the mayor, I guess you can say, what are we doing here? We are looking at changing the system. We're looking at changing the systemic racism that exists within the city government and government. But it's about working together and changing not just policy, but changing a complete mindset. Dr. King spoke to change a mindset. As you said, Barry, in the very beginning, he was not shy to go after elected officials. He went after elected officials, I think, because elected officials were perceived the leaders at that particular moment. I think today, politics has changed so much, we're not necessarily the leaders are the people, and the people are the ones who elect us. And I think it really is, I think how we make change is not just through policies, through actions. It's about what are we willing to do. Every year we come to this breakfast. Every year we leave here inspired. There's an amazing speaker. We feel inspired about it. Every year we all give our message. Every year we talk. What happens tomorrow? That's
right.
the question. What happens tomorrow? And if we don't do anything, and when I say tomorrow, I'm not talking about making a public statement on Twitter or Facebook. I'm talking about actual action in your neighborhood, in your church, on your street corner, in your grocery store, wherever it might be. What can we do to continue to move forward? The pressure still needs to be on the four of us on this stage and every other elected official that's in this room. But we really have to, I think we have to think about how do we make change? We come to this breakfast. I've come to this breakfast as mayor now for the last 7 years. I came here before that. We talk about the need for change. We talk about the need for dealing with racism. We talk about the need for all of the things that we have to do. And next year, we're going to be at this breakfast, and we're either going to have a new president or not a new president, and we're going to be talking about the same things. It's time to stop talking. It's time for action.
All right, well, this is hard. You all know I'm the granddaughter of a Baptist preacher, and you want me to try to lean towards brevity here.
That's why I try to speak before Ayanna does.
Okay. Somebody will give me a signal. Okay, I do want to just say this. There is nothing wrong, and in fact, it is so very necessary that we do continue to be intentional about creating space to inform and to experience joy. I do not want us to be apologists about that, because, let me just say, people have been, look, I've been robbed of my hair. I lost my hair. And, I was saying to people, that's nothing new. Hardship is transcendent. Hardship is universal. And for the issue of alopecia, of which there are millions of sufferers, certainly there are many black women. So I've been robbed of my hair. But black women have been robbed of things for a long time. Right? So we were robbed of our men that were lynched. We were robbed of our children that we were separated from at the auction block and, on plantations. They tried to rob us of our beauty by criminalizing or violating our bodies. So that's nothing new. So I'm just going to say that it's all right to stand in joy, because when you are oppressed and marginalized, we give each other so much instruction about the armor that we need to put on to navigate and to negotiate the world and to do it safely. But joy is a necessary act of resistance as well. And because when we were enslaved and we were in the fields, we still had joy and we still had a song in our heart. And that's important too, okay? That's important too. When we have an administration that is looking to undo the gains that we have made, that is looking to exacerbate existing hurt, in a district, the Massachusetts 7th, 800,000 people strong, 53% people of color, 40% foreign-born, almost 40% single female-headed households. When this administration is coming for our humanity, for our democracy, for our civil rights and our civil liberties, for my self-agency and autonomy over my body, I'm not giving them my joy too. But that being said, that joy does need to fortify us for the work, legislative work. And so here we are in the Massachusetts 7th, and I'll wrap here. This is a district that is diverse, vibrant, and dynamic. It is also one of the most unequal in the country. Now let me say this. Politicians cannot say that the best policies are informed by data, and then when I tell you that black folk are in the bottom of every category, disproportionately bearing the burden of every hurt, from poor health outcomes to housing that is not affordable and sanitary, to bearing a greater burden of student debt, to still being unable to attain a mortgage fairly and all of these things, then you can't deny that. If the best policies are informed by data, and I tell you black folks are in the bottom of every category, and then you want me to be an apologist for saying that I am fighting for the economic empowerment and advancement and preservation of black folk. Not only Speaker Pelosi says that she's in Congress for the children, the children, the children. Do any of you say, what about the adults? No. Only women and people of color are asked to be apologists for fighting for their very preservation, which is why, I promise I will close, but when you spoke of Black Lives Matter,
Yes.
this federal government has created a category to further survey and police black activists called Black Identity Extremism. Yes, I am an extremist about loving my people. And everybody else too. But listen, I promise I'm in here, but I am so tired of people saying that what is ruining this country is identity politics. No, it isn't. It is hate and white supremacy that is codified through legislation. If we can celebrate the identity of a veteran, if we can celebrate the identity of a survivor of domestic violence, if we can celebrate the identity of someone in the recovery community and say why we need them at the table to make sure that what happened to them doesn't happen to another person again, the solution is representation, and there is nothing wrong with identity.
Okay. Any other? Would either of you like to add anything?
I'm sitting here thinking that the mayor made a smart strategic move. Sitting over there.
Let's switch seats. Charlie,
The only thing I can add to that rant, okay, is this.
It was a little TED talk.
I say to people all the time that the greatest gift that's come to my wife and to me as a result of this chance we've had to serve has been the opportunity we've had, if only for a few moments at a time, to walk in the shoes of so many different people across the Commonwealth whose life experiences have been different than ours. And that point that the Congresswoman just made about the fact that every life is individual and every life should be celebrated and that there's an identity associated with every life and that that identity needs to be part of the conversation that we have when we make policy and we make decisions, that is absolutely so spot on. I can't even begin to double or triple down on it except to say that you can't make policy, you can't make decisions, you can't build anything close to a beloved community if you don't have the voices and the experiences that cut across all of your communities involved in that conversation. Period, flat out, the end.
Right.
Spinning off of your reference to the beloved community, let me ask one last question. Yes.
Can I just
No,
weigh in
no,
on that
go
just
right
for a second?
ahead.
Yeah. I just want to go to this.
He never weighs in for just a second on anything.
I just want to weigh in on this question of young people.
Yes.
That's your question. Young people. You know, you grow up where your mother tells your father where to live. So my father's from Lawrence, my mother's from Malden. I grew up in Malden. But when I announced for the Senate 6 years ago, I went up to ring the doorbell of the first floor of the triple-decker in Lawrence to see who lives there now, where the five brothers and sisters, my father, his brothers and sisters lived on the first floor of that triple-decker. And out onto the porch came a Dominican family with their children. And the accents were different, but the aspiration's the same for that family as for the Markey family. My father's son is a United States Senator from that porch in Lawrence. His other two sons are lawyers. Every family should have that same dream for every child on every porch all across our country, regardless of their color. That's who we have to be. That's who we have to fight for. And I'm very conscious of the fact that I'm white. Black people and brown people have extra burdens that we don't have. We thought we came up tough. No. We didn't have the same barriers that black and brown people have. We have to be conscious of that. And these young people today, they're revolutionaries. They're revolutionaries. When 50,000 young people march from Roxbury to Boston Common saying that they want guns off the streets of our country and out of their schools. When they say they want NRA to stand for not relevant anymore in American politics, it's the young people who are leading us saying, get it done. When young people march for the climate march on Boston, in front of Boston City Hall, and 10,000 of them show up, they say that black and brown people are breathing different air than white people in our society, and they want an end to climate change in our society. When young people say they don't want a war, they don't want a war authorized with Iran, without a vote in the House and Senate, they know it will be them who are affected, their generation who will have to fight that war if we do not have that vote, if we do not stop Donald Trump, if we do not stand up for their brothers and sisters who are LGBTQ. Those are the young people. They are the revolutionaries. They are the follow-on to the abolitionists, to the suffragettes, to those who stood up for the Affordable Care Act, for same-sex marriage in our society. They are the revolutionaries of today. The young people are standing up and demanding the change that gives the rights to everyone in our society that white men have always enjoyed. And once we understand that and where their anger comes from, then the policies will follow.
Thank you very much. I think this has been, I appreciate how candid this has been as a discussion, and a willingness to push into some areas that I don't think we often hear in political speech. So on behalf of this audience and this event, I thank you all for your rich contributions. And with that, we've used up all of our time. All right. Okay. Well, that was a very good run on that last answer.
Thank you.
Okay.
I don't know about tomorrow. I just live from day to day. Don't borrow from its sunshine, though its skies may turn to gray. Don't worry o'er the future, for I know what Jesus said, and today I walk beside you, for he knows what is ahead. Many things about tomorrow I don't seem to understand, but I know who holds tomorrow, and I know who holds my live. I just live from day to day. Don't borrow from its sunshine, for its skies may turn to gray. I don't have to worry for the future. For I know. Does anybody know what Jesus said? And today I walk beside him, for he knows what is ahead. Said many things about tomorrow. I don't seem to understand, but I know who holds tomorrow. And I know who holds my hand. He holds my hand. Does anybody know who holds your hand? Even though we may not understand. The Lord holds my hand. Said many things about tomorrow. I don't see one, but I know. Your hand. Yes, I know. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no. One thing I know. One thing that I know is that I know is that I know is that I know. But I know who holds tomorrow. And I know who holds my That ought to be good news to anybody who knows the Lord holds your hand. Though you may not see your way, just understand the Lord holds your hand. He holds my hand. The Lord holds my hand. Yeah. The Lord holds my
Thank you to all of our distinguished speakers for your inspiring words today. At this time, I would like to thank the top sponsors for today's event. Thank you to ABCD for leading the group as our legacy sponsor. The visionary sponsors, Eastern Bank and Liberty Mutual Insurance. And the MLK Scholar sponsor, Putnam Investments, the Dream Scholar sponsor as well, Delta Dental of Massachusetts. The Gold sponsors, the Boston Foundation and King Boston, Brigham Health, Massachusetts General Hospital and Partners Healthcare, Cabot Corporation, Keolis, MFS Investment Management, Raytheon, the TJX Companies, Tufts Health Plan, UHM Properties, and Vertex. You guys can clap for these people. It's okay. Our media sponsors and event partners, My Home Base, WCVB Channel 5, Bay State Banner, BNN Media, Projection, Mass Convention Center Authority. And a big thank you to the many more who made a financial commitment to the success of this 50th anniversary breakfast. We thank you. The MLK committee thanks you as well. And while I'd love to individually recognize all of the many special guests in this room, we would be here all day. So let's give them a well-deserved applause when they stand by group. The elected and appointed officials that are here with us today, please rise. Thank you. The clergy, please rise. We thank you. All of our committee members who have championed for the breakfast, please stand as we acknowledge your hard work for today's event. Thank you all so much. Today we have with us a very special gift, Bishop Curry. Many may recognize Bishop Curry from the extraordinary sermon he delivered at Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's wedding in May of 2018. And he also presided over former President George H.W. Bush's funeral. Here's what you need to know about the distinguished Reverend. He made racial reconciliation a priority for the Episcopal Church. He is a trailblazer. The riveting sermon he gave at the royal wedding was one that transfixed both the elite crowd of guests in the church and the broad television audience watching around the world. He spoke about slavery and quoted Martin Luther King Jr. in his royal wedding sermon. Bishop Curry's sermon was not just praising the love between Harry and Meghan, or even the love between couples more generally, but he was able to invoke MLK's message of love as an answer. He is the first African-American presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church. He was born in Chicago and graduated from Hobart College and the Yale Divinity School. He has been affiliated with churches in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Lincoln Heights, Ohio, and Baltimore, Maryland, before being elected, that is, the bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of North Carolina. He's been the presiding bishop for the Episcopal Church since 2015. Please give a warm and big welcome to Bishop Michael Curry.
Thank you. Well, I first of all want to thank you for the invitation to be with you, and I thank God for you. It was wonderful to hear political leaders speak with a moral voice. That's good religion. And I thought your Congresswoman had some Baptist preacher in her. I kept listening to that sister. I said, oh no, there's some religion deep down in her. It is a privilege and a pleasure, and I pray that this gathering will be not only an opportunity for inspiration, but an opportunity for rededication, for sacred consecration to the work that God has given us to do for such a time as this. To the awardees and those who are honored for keeping the faith, we thank God for you and pray that your tribe may increase. So it's good to be here. I flew in last night from North Carolina, where the weather was slightly different. But as the old song from the 70s from my youth said, it may be winter outside, but in my heart it's spring. So it's good to be here. I hope you're glad to be here. Oh, it's good to be here. In fact, while you're at it, just turn to that person next to you and tell them it's good to be here. You're going to tell them. It is good to be here. Good to be here. Now this is not a sermon. It's titled a keynote, so I'll be mindful of that. But if it was a sermon, I would have a text. But it's not a sermon, it's a keynote. But imagine that it was a sermon. And that the text came from the Hebrew scriptures, from the writings of the prophet Jeremiah. But again, this is not a sermon, let me be clear. Jeremiah chapter 17, in this keynote, the prophet said it this way: "Blessed are those who trust in the Lord, whose trust is in the Lord. They shall be like a tree planted by water, sending out its roots by the stream. It will not fear when the heat comes, and its leaves will stay green. Even in the year of drought, it will not be anxious, and it never ceases to bear fruit." The old song said this way: "I shall not be moved. I shall not be moved. Like a tree standing by the water, I shall not be moved." Now, this is a keynote, and I'm an Episcopalian. Let me offer a learned dissertation, and then when you wake up, just a quick historical note on this text. The prophet Jeremiah was born about the year 650 before the Common Era, before the birth of Jesus. And he was born at the wrong time. He was a troubled prophet who lived in a troubled time. Early in his life, there was a king on the throne of Judah named Josiah. And Josiah brought hope to the people. Josiah reformed the nation. Josiah took seriously the words of Moses that the poor must always be cared for. Josiah took seriously the integrity of religious leadership. The reform of Josiah was a day of hope. He had dreams of his father. Josiah was a king of greatness. But then another king came. Jehoiakim and Jehoahaz and Zedekiah. And these three kings had different policies. Justice was not on their horizon. Caring for those who have need was not their concern. In fact, they played political games on the level of geopolitics. They entered into unwise alliances. They canceled treaties that had long been in place. I'm just giving you a biblical history now. Don't get upset. They prepared to seal off the borders of Judah, to build imaginary walls, if you will. They segregated and separated people by their class and their caste. They separated folk even in the house of God, to the point that Jeremiah once said, "My house shall be called a house of prayer for all people." They mistreated the poor and the religious leaders were silent, so much so that Jeremiah had to get up and preach in the temple. Jeremiah was a prophet in a country that was bereft of moral decency, in a country that had lost its way, a country that had abandoned its true roots. And that's what Jeremiah said. Now, I'm not talking about contemporary politics. This is just history. But Jeremiah said, when you live in a time like that, when lies are substituted for the truth, when falsehood and disgrace is lifted up in the public square, in times like that, you must be like a tree standing by the water. I shall not be moved. Oh. I shall not be moved. Now again, this is a keynote. Let me be clear. I've been to Ghana a number of times, and it's one occasion a few years ago. I was there not primarily to preach or to go to meetings, but I was there as part of a pilgrimage of black folk and white folk, a pilgrimage of justice and reconciliation. And so we were all going back to some of the roots, if you will, the roots of the reality that is the United States of America. So we went back on a pilgrimage, and while there we went to both some of the slave camps, more on the north and inland of Ghana, and to the castles on the coast, to the door of no return, days when hope unborn had died. We went back together, black and white, sons and daughters of former slaves, sons and daughters of former slave masters. We went back together. At one of the slave camps, where they would rest the slaves who had been captured inland on the way to the coast, there are still remnants and there is still evidence of what happened there. There were clear attempts to actually cover up the memory centuries ago, to cover it up. But the folk in the villages nearby, the old griots, had told the story. And they told it to each successive generation. We got to one of the slave camps, and you could see chiseled out from the rock the bowls where people would eat from. And you could see trees where the incorrigible, the difficult slaves were tied to in the hot sun. And our guide, who was a young man from one of the nearby villages, pointed to a large tree. I mean, a large tree. And he said, that tree has been here for centuries. And when you looked at it, the bush part of the tree was so huge, and there were birds on it, and there was fruit and vegetation on it, and there was life in it. And he said, that tree has been here for centuries. That tree was there in the medieval period, when Ghana was part of the great empires of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. That tree was there when the conquerors came, the Danes first, and then the British. That tree was there in the days of British colonialism. That tree was still there in 1959 when Dr. Kwame Nkrumah declared that Africa must rise and unite. Oh, that tree was there as the nation of Ghana sought to fashion its way as a free and independent nation, joining all the nations of the earth. Oh, that tree was there when Michelle Obama came and looked at that tree. That tree was there, and it's still there to this very day with fruit and blossoms. And I started to wonder, what is the lesson of this tree?
And I realized that that's what Jeremiah was getting at. Listen to the trees. I was a little boy in school. We had to learn that poem. Y'all remember by Joyce Kilmer? I believe that I shall see nothing as beautiful as a tree, for poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree. Listen to the tree. And when I looked at the tree, I think I saw the answer. The tree, as large as it was above, was bigger below. It had a complex root system, a root system that stretched out all over the land, a root system that was wide and inclusive. Stay with me, I'm coming to something now. And that was wide and inclusive, and that went deep down into the soil. We were in the northern part of Ghana, which is getting close to the Sahara Desert, where the land is beginning to shift and become sandy. And to find water, you've got to go deep in the soil. That tree had roots that went deep in the soil and wide in the earth. I want to suggest that Jeremiah understood this, that if you want to weather uncertain times, if you want to navigate in moral ambiguity and perplexity, when lies are substituted for truth, when misbehavior is exalted as just plain behavior, when people are treated like animals and put down, when oh, help me somebody, when mamas are separated from their children at the border of this country. You want to navigate that, you got to be like that tree with roots that are wide and inclusive and deep and nurturing. Now let me work this a little bit, and I'm not going to be long. This is not a sermon, it's a keynote. See, notice the lesson of the tree. Roots that are wide and inclusive and deep and nurturing. I want to suggest, and this is the point, in this country, we need two things. We need a revival of relationships and a revolution of values, as Dr. King said. Revival of relationships and a revolution of values. Old slaves used to sing a song that said, there's plenty good room. Plenty good room in my Father's kingdom. We need a revival of relationships so that e pluribus unum is not simply a Latin phrase that we put on dollar bills, but is a living reality in this country and ultimately in this world. In March 2016, during the Republican primaries, President Donald Trump at that time had a rally in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I live in Raleigh. And at that rally, protesters were present, as was common. And the protesters were protesting the message of Mr. Trump. They did so peacefully, but they protested. And the police were called, and the protesters were taken out. And they left peacefully. One of them was a man named Raheem Jones. He was black, in case you didn't notice by the name. I'm waiting for that. We know we have true equality when I meet somebody white named Raheem. then we will know. Anyway, Raheem was, one of the protesters, so he was going out peacefully, and as he was going out, they were escorting him out. A man named John McGraw, he was a white guy. He still is, but anyway, he was a white guy. Anyway, John McGraw was so worked up in the fever pitch of what was going on in that rally that he literally leapt over the police and the sheriffs and punched Raheem Jones in the face. Well, McGraw was arrested. The protesters were taken out peacefully. They weren't arrested. He was arrested, and he said at the time, and I quote, this was in the Raleigh News and Observer,
Well, he deserved it. The next time I see him, I might have to kill him, because we don't know who he is. He could be a member of a terrorist organization. We don't know who he is? James Baldwin, where are you when we need you now? Oh, we don't know who he is? Well, later at the trial, McGraw was a bit more contrite. And after he had been sentenced, he went over to Jones, he actually did, and they shook hands, and he apologized. And McGraw said, and I quote, "We're in a mess right now. We're caught up in a political mess, you and me, and we got to find a way to heal our country." My brothers and sisters, he was right. We got to find a way to heal this country. Dr. King said a long time ago, we shall either learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or we will perish together as fools. The choice is ours, chaos or community. And if you still didn't understand it from Dr. King, maybe Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm. I heard her say it. I'm a little bit older than I look, but I heard, I was in college and she came to speak. We had the Third World Coalition. We were so righteous. Anyway, we invited her to speak, and I'll never forget, she said at some point in her speech, she said, you know, we all came over here on different ships, but we all on the same boat now. The truth is, we will sink or swim together. And we must find ways to navigate together. I don't care what your color is. I don't care what your caste is. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care what your sexual orientation is. I don't care what your gender identity is. I don't care how high you think you are and how low you may actually be. It doesn't matter. We were all made by the same God who is the creator of us all, and we are all children of that one God, and we got to learn how to live together. How to live together. And now I'm going to get in trouble. I know I'm going to get in trouble. You can boo me off the stage. That's all right. I'm going to Atlanta from here. And anyway, I mean, the truth is we have got to learn to live together, and we have got to learn to make love the center of our lives. Love must become the center of our lives, or our corporate life will be cut short. We got to learn how to love each other. If we are going to survive, we are in this together. We will sink or swim together, and we might as well love each other because we're here to stay. And I'm going to get in trouble now. And that means if you're a Democrat, is there a Democrat in this house today? You need to find you a Republican and love them. Ooh, I just gave you a hard assignment, but you got to do it. And if you're a Republican, you got to find a Democrat and love them. Oh, that's a hard thing to do. And if you're an independent, you can love anybody you want. Just go whichever way you want. The truth is, we've got to make e pluribus unum true and real, because only when you do that do you begin to knit together the fabric of a democratic republic, of a society, and only when it is knitted together will it hold together. Oh, we need a revival of relationships in our time. That tree is telling us something. Those roots are wide and inclusive, and they stabilize the tree, even when the wind is blowing. But I don't want to stop there. Now, this is the keynote. We not only need a revival of relationships, but as Dr. King once said, we need a revolution of values. A revolution of values that is truly radical. And the word radical, the English word radical, comes from the Latin word radius, which means to get to the root of matter. That's where we get the root.
And so to go deep in the soil is where the tree finds its nutrients for living. Deep in the soil, it finds the biological sources of life and vitality. And the deeper you go, the more vibrant is the tree itself. I want to suggest that we got some shared values. Let me just talk about shared values. I remember some years ago, some of y'all remember this book called All I Really Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. You remember that? My brother, who Unitarian minister, wrote it, and it's a good book. And what he did was he said, everything I needed to know that makes sense out of living, I learned when I was in kindergarten. He said, for example, some examples, share everything. It's not bad. And that's not just for individuals, but that's for corporate entities too. Help me, somebody. Apply that on a societal level. Share everything. Play fair. Oh, let's put that on the level of society and politics. Play fair. Don't hit people. Put things back where you found them. Clean up your own mess. Woo, watch the news and listen to what's going on and just say, clean up your own mess. Don't take things that aren't yours. Say you're sorry when you hurt somebody. Wash your hands before you eat. Flush. Take a nap every afternoon. And then check this one out, the last one. When you go out into the world, watch out for traffic, hold hands, and stick together. Oh, now those are some commonsensical values. It doesn't matter what your religion is, what your politics are, what your philosophy happens to be. Those are common sense values. We all learned them in kindergarten. We just forgot. See, I want to suggest that we must reclaim the core values radically to the root that are the ideals that inhabit the background of this country, even through its hypocrisy. Stay with me for a second. We got some shared values. I know I'm in New England, so I'm on solid ground here. And see, the truth is, if you look, just look at Thomas Jefferson. I know he was a hypocrite. I know who Sally Hemings was. And we know he was a hypocrite, but that's all right. I'm a preacher. I'm one, and I'm up here talking, and y'all listening. So that's nothing. Hypocrite's nothing new. The truth is, he may have been wrong, but the words were right. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men, all folk are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Human equality, human dignity is not conferred by Congress. It is decreed by the Lord God Almighty. And the job of our legislators is to enact the divine law into human law so that everybody may live. Oh, this country has a hypocritical history, but the ideals behind it are true. 7 years ago, our forefathers brought upon this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men, all people, all human beings are created equal. My brothers and sisters, we have an ideal, a moral background that is behind the fabric of this country, even in our duplicity. Even in our hypocrisy. But it's hard to trust that. It's hard. But the values of equality, human dignity, the values of justice, old Amos, that Hebrew prophet, let justice roll down like a mighty stream and righteousness like an ever-flowing brook, of justice. The right ordering of society as God intends, not as we intend. Of justice, values of compassion, of kindness. The Ten Commandments of not bearing false witness. That means not lying. I mean, help me, somebody. This is not rocket science. The truth is, there are values and ideals and principles that we actually already share that can lift us up and ennoble us. We've just got to go deep enough to find them and to claim them again so that there will be plenty good room for all of God's children, so that this country, let me tell you something. Alexander de Tocqueville came to this country in the 19th century. And in his writings, he wrote back when he got back to Europe. And he said, you know, America is great. He didn't have a hat with MAGA. America is great. That slipped out. I'm sorry. The Episcopalians here, don't y'all tell anybody I said that. But anyway, he said, America, this is in the 19th century, he said, America is great because America is good. America will be great when it is good. America will be great when it is just. America will be great when it is kind. America will be great when love is behind every law. America will be great when our borders are open. Give me your tired, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. America will be great when America is true to the ideals that are behind it. Now let me bring this keynote address to a conclusion. I know that it's hard to believe. I say you got to go to work. You go on, sister. Go on. It's all right. You tell them I gave you a hall pass. I believe in justice. I believe in human equality. I believe in the dignity of every man, woman, child, every human being, no matter who they are. I believe that we are all the children of God, created in God's image and likeness, and that is divinely decreed, not man-made. I believe that because I believe that behind all of the ideals that we share, there is one great ideal, one great reality, and that is the love of God, which is the source of justice. The love of God, which is the source of truth. The love of God, which is the source of equality. The love of God. My Bible says, and this is a keynote, not a sermon, but if it was a sermon, my Bible would say in 1 John chapter 4, verses 7 and 8, Beloved, let us love one another because love is of God, and those who love are born of God and know God because God is love. And I believe that nothing can stop the power of love. Love will endure when nothing else will. Love will lift us up when nothing else can. Love will heal our land. Love will make us great. Love, 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 love.
On behalf of the Breakfast Committee, we want to thank Bishop Curry for his most inspiring keynote address, not sermon, not a sermon. And on behalf of the committee, we want to make this small contribution to him.
There's a sweet, sweet spirit moving in this place, and I know it's the Spirit of the Lord, and there's a sweet, sweet expression on each face, and I know it's the presence of the Lord. Sweet Holy Spirit, sweet, sweet heavenly God, stand right here with us, filling us with your love, and for these blessings we lift our praise. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a sweet, come on. There's a sweet, sweet spirit moving in this place, and I know it's the Spirit of the Lord. There's a sweet, sweet expression on each face, and I know it's the presence of the Lord. Sweet Holy Spirit, sweet heavenly dove, stay right here with us, filling us with your love, filling us with your love, and for these blessings we lift our hearts with praise. Without a doubt, we'll know that we have been revived when we take it up, sweet, sweet Holy Spirit, sweet heavenly dove, stay right here with us, filling us with your love, and for these blessings we lift our hearts to praise. Without a doubt, we'll know. Come on, everybody, can I have you clap your hands with us? Come on. Without a doubt, we'll know. Have you enjoyed what you've heard today? Come on. Without a doubt, we'll know. Come on, without a doubt, we'll know. Without a doubt, we'll know. Take it up, take it up, take it up. Without a doubt, we'll know. 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 Come on, you can feel it all. You can feel it all
we please give Bishop Curry one more really big round of applause? Incredible. I think it's fair to say that a piece of history was here with us today. It is now time for the awards portion of our program. So please welcome to the podium Attorney General Maura Healey to introduce the Drum Major Awards.
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here today. And I just want to say, of course, to Bishop Curry, that was an incredible something to be able to listen to and be inspired by this morning. Really just something. And Bishop, I also want to say that to listen to our friend, our Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, who always speaks the truth and speaks, I think, with the clearest and most compelling voice, substantive voice, calling out exactly what we need and what our leaders need to deliver. I continue to remain so inspired by Ayanna and how she goes about the work. And I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge her and what she said earlier. Heartfelt words and also words of substance and articulation of policy and action that we need right now, starting in Massachusetts. Thank you, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. So today we honor leaders promoting and embracing diversity and the principles and goals of Dr. King. On February 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. preached the drum major instinct from the pulpit of the Ebenezer Baptist Church. This was just 2 months before his assassination. King preached that Jesus taught that greatness comes from humble servitude. As King put it, Jesus reordered priorities, and he told his disciples to keep feeling the need for being first, but I want you to be first in love. King used Jesus' own life as an example of how the priority of love could provide greatness. And he asked to be remembered as one who tried to give his life serving others. He pled with his congregation to remember his attempts to feed the hungry, clothe the naked, and comfort prisoners. Yes, if you want to say that I was a drum major, say that I was a drum major for justice. Say that I was a drum major for peace. I was a drum major for righteousness. All of the other shallow things will not matter. These two incredible honorees today embody the spirit and greatness that Dr. King referenced. To introduce our first awardee is a person I think we all got to give a special hand to for all of her work in advocacy, and she's talked from this stage before, to address the inequalities when it comes to education in our city and state. I want to welcome to the stage our terrific, wonderful Senator Sonia Chang Diaz.
Good morning, church. It's good to be with you, my stream, in this time of drought. I first learned of Charlotte Golar-Ritchie as a young activist, sitting around the dinner table with social justice soldier friends of my parents. I don't have to tell you that Charlotte Golar-Ritchie has deep roots throughout our community and is highly respected for her tireless advocacy. Charlotte Golar-Ritchie, and you have to say all three, right? It's like Madonna has one name, Charlotte Golar-Ritchie has three, and you got to use them all. She has been a strong voice for creating opportunities for those who face barriers to success. As an advocate for youth development, in public education, near and dear to my heart, and safe and affordable neighborhoods. In 1981, she signed up with the U.S. Peace Corps to serve 2 years as a volunteer English teacher in Kenya, East Africa. Here she gained her first experience with advocacy and worked with people from different backgrounds to improve conditions in under-resourced communities. In 1985, she arrives as a blessing to us here in Boston as an aspiring journalist. And let this be a reminder to us that journalists are an ally to democracy, not an enemy of the people. Charlotte Golar-Ritchie covered the news for Dorchester Community News and for Neighborhood Network News. And it wasn't long before she was persuaded by her neighbors to run for elected office. Winning a seat as a legislator in the Massachusetts House of Representatives, she became one of 2 freshman representatives to be appointed a chair of a committee. And she made history by being the first African-American woman to preside over the House during a formal legislative session. Ritchies, you can give it up for that. Charlotte Golar-Ritchie's legislative success caught the eye of city and state leaders and led to important subsequent roles in government. She went on to work in the administration of Mayor Menino. In 2013, she ran a trailblazing campaign for mayor of Boston and emerged as a top 3 leader in an unprecedented field of 12 candidates. In state government, you can give it up for that too. Many of us were with that campaign. In state government, she served under Governor Deval Patrick as senior advisor. In 2014, former Governor Patrick appointed her as commissioner for the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination, where she enforced the state's laws for fairness and equality. And Charlotte Golar-Ritchie currently serves on numerous nonprofit boards supporting still diversity, health, women and children, including Youth Build USA, Boston's Higher Ground, and the Tufts Health Plan Foundation. We are so proud today to present the Drum Major Award to Charlotte Golar-Ritchie.
Sonia, thank you so much for your leadership, your friendship, and for those wonderful words, warm words, words coming from a sister in arms. Just love you. Thank you. And to our distinguished pastors, the organizers of this amazing event, Reverend Monrell Williams, Reverend Jay Williams, and I also want to acknowledge my friend, if I may, A.J. Williams. And there are a lot of Williams in the house today, right? And they could be kin, okay? But while they're not directly related, they have a common purpose. A purpose about building community. And if you just look behind you at the sea of family members, colleagues, friends in this room today, you know that you have succeeded in building community. AJ wanted me to accept this award, but I wanted to say words of thanks first. I'm going to keep this tight so we can move the program forward, but there are things that I want to say because I'm going to have a chance to say this again. First of all, I know I would not be standing here if it were not for a wonderful family of my own seated at this table, starting with my wonderful husband of 35 years, Winston Ritchie, and at my beautiful daughter, Lee Ritchie, but also at my family, I have extended family that have given me love and support, including my wonderful nephews, Alex and Jackson, my sister-in-law, Laurel, John, my brother-in-law, Len, and I just want to say also my god sister, Dr. Deborah Scott, many of you know. And I just want to just say, because I may never have to be able to do this again, right, is that I love you all, and I'm here because of you all. I also want to, I have thanked our clergy, and I also want to say to you all, those who I have worked with, I know you directly, those of you I may not have met, that this award is dedicated to you all. It's dedicated to you because I could not be standing here at this mic, again, without the support, without the advice, without lifting me up at times, challenging me at times, and making me the best person that I could be so that I could be standing here to get this Drum Major Award. I am grateful to you, and I will remember this award for the rest of my life. This term Drum Major, which we are talking about this morning, actually has, according to Dr. Martin Luther King, it has dual meanings. And we know that, right? On the one hand, you could be focused as an individual on yourself. But also, conversely, you could be focused on your efforts to be of service to others. Obviously, I am doing my best to aspire towards the latter, to be of service to others. I will remind us that in 1968, that was the fateful date, Ebenezer Baptist Church, 2 months before Dr. King was slain on the balcony of that Memphis hotel. He preached about harnessing the drum major instinct for causes that were good. And he said that when it was time for him to meet his maker, he didn't want people talking about his awards and degrees. Instead, he wanted to be remembered for leading a life in which he tried to love and serve humanity. Strong and hopeful Dr. King was. Strong and hopeful, and in the affirmative, he said, yes. And this is our Attorney General Maura Healey spoke to this. Yes, I want to say I was a drum major, and I want to say I was a drum major for justice, a drum major for peace, and a drum major for righteousness. Justice, peace, and righteousness. Take those 3 words home today, because that's something we can all aspire to. I will say that in ending that speech at Ebenezer Baptist Church, Dr. King gave us words of advice from a perspective about lending a hand always to people wherever you meet them. His words, if I can help somebody as I pass along, you know those words. If I can cheer somebody with a word or song, if I can show somebody he's traveling wrong, then my living will not be in vain. So my friends, all of you here today, to be included in this program to receive this award, which embodies Dr. King's philosophy of service, is truly a tremendous honor. It's one, as I say, I will cherish forever. And after I leave this breakfast and think back on today, I know I will be inspired to continue to live my best life in the best sense of what the Drum Major Award and what it represents. You know, this feels like a Lifetime Achievement Award, but as Dr. King would say, the good Lord in heaven, he's not done with me yet. Thank you, everyone. Love you.
Good morning, or afternoon. It's like 3:30, right? Sorry. Good morning, afternoon, everybody. I'm Rachel Rollins. I am the first female district attorney in the history of Suffolk County, and the first black woman to ever hold this job, or woman of color, in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I want to give a shout out to Table 74, my colleagues and peers from the District Attorney's Office over there, so thank you very much. It's my honor to present this award to our next Drum Major awardee. Marvin Gilmore is 95 years old, and he continues to lead a vibrant and active life that has firmly established his status as a local living legend. Marvin is many things to many people: civil rights activist, entrepreneur, dedicated World War II veteran, decorated as well, music club owner, humanitarian, political advisor, and community leader. He's one of those very, very special people who we can simply not classify as one thing or one type. Marvin epitomizes the servant leader. Those of you here representing organizations Marvin has been a part of will know he never misses a meeting. He never fails to support whatever event you are holding, and he never fails to remember how important the work is that each of you do. Shortly after the death of Martin Luther King Jr. in 1968, Marvin co-founded the Unity Bank and Trust Company in Roxbury, Massachusetts, the first African-American owned and operated commercial bank in Boston. Yes. Today, you know it as One United Bank. In 1973, Marvin became the president and CEO of the Community Development Corporation of Boston, kicking off 4 decades of work toward economic empowerment for Boston's underserved populations. Gilmore has played a role in changing the face and economic prospects of Roxbury with projects such as the Southwest Corridor redevelopment and the Newmarket Industrial District. A musician as well, Marvin trained at the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and the New England Conservatory of Music, on whose board he still serves. For 46 years, his nightclub, the Western Front, brought live jazz, reggae, salsa, and R&B acts to us, bringing our music, our culture, to a place where we felt welcomed. Marvin mentored those students at the New England Conservatory, including accompanying some of them on ensemble trips to Venezuela and Argentina. And here's a fun fact. I am told that Marvin is a great tango dancer. And if all of that was not enough, Marvin made the Boston Globe's list of the 25 most stylish Bostonians in 2007 at the age of 83 for his well-known elegance and fashion flair. And I know everyone's saying, I am not my hair, but if you've seen Marvin's hair, it's like, great, it's great, it's great. So in closing, and to me, the most beautiful and honorable part is that Marvin is a member of the greatest generation. As a teenager, he enlisted in the U.S. Army and embarked for Europe to fight in World War II. He was part of the storming of Normandy on D-Day, providing cover from an anti-aircraft unit for American soldiers. Marvin's bravery and dedication, yes, his massive contributions and understanding of the importance of creating economic opportunity for his people make him a true hero. So Marvin Gilmore, please join me on stage to accept this well-deserved 2020 Drum Major Award.
Have a seat. You know, I may have stormed Normandy Beach years ago when I was a young kid, but tonight it's like storming all of you. But it's a different story. It's a different story. Life has been great. Life has been great. And they said I was 95, but I think I'm hitting 96. Yeah. And I'm proud to be here. I'm proud to be alive to say, good morning, everybody. Why? Because my mind is working, my feet are still dancing, and I'm still smiling, because you only have one chance. You know what I mean? Do it now. Now, let me just put this down. Rachel, where's Rachel Rollins? Rachel? I want to thank you for that beautiful overture. I used to play music. I was doing conservatory music. But first, my son, David Gilmore, he's one of the world-famous guitar players. He teaches at Berkeley. He's here with me tonight. He drove all the way from New York to say, be with his father. You know. Thank you. I'm so proud. I want to thank the governor, the mayor, and all such a beautiful woman. Congresswoman Pressley. Yeah. I fell in love with her for the first time. Let me get this right. And Senator Markey, Attorney General Healy, and local officials, Reverend clergy, fellow honorees, and distinguished guests, because today you're all of my guests, all of you. Congressman to the MLK Memorial Breakfast Committee, St. Cyprian's Memorial Church, Union United Methodist Church, on celebrating the 50th anniversary of the nation's longest running event, celebrating the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. Thank you very much for choosing to honor me with the Drum Major Award. I have lived almost a century, and to live this long is almost a miracle. I say to myself, what have I achieved to deserve this long life? What legacy will I leave for future generations? My entire life work has been dedicated to being a crusader for freedom and to celebrate hope and opportunities for all people. I'm so proud to witness monumental changes in our most powerful institution. At this moment, the first black woman is representing the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in the U.S. Congress. The first black police commissioners are serving the cities of Boston and Cambridge. 2, the current Boston City Council is the most diverse in its history. And Cambridge just elected the first Muslim mayor to serve the Commonwealth. What changes has gone since Marvin, at 96 years old, have seen since I was a little boy. There have been I'm sorry, my eyes are teary. There has been no greater influence on my life than that of my mother, Leah Augusta O'Neill Gilmore. She embodied the dream major instinct. In all she achieved, I know she would be very proud to see me being honored today and receiving the Drum Major Award in honor of the civil rights movement and social justice legacy of the great Martin Luther King, Jr. When Martin Luther King's parents came to Boston for the medical care of Mass General Hospital, my mother looked after them, and they stayed at her home as she had done for so many other notables throughout her life. I would briefly like to share with you my mother's words spoken when honoring her own mother, Sophronia O'Neill, shortly after her passing at the tender age of 106 years. That's my grandmother. In Notasulga, Alabama, Grandma Sophronia, who was born into slavery, served in the AME Zion Church for 60 years as president of the Stewardess Board. In her words, as well as words of the poet H.N. You want to read? I'm going to read this to you. Farley. I can't see. Quote, I felt it fitting to try and help keep her memories alive, since in her life she lived by the word of God and for God. Of my mother may I say, her creed. I care not what her creed, enough that never yielded her to greed, but serve a brother in his daily need. Plucked many a thorn and planted many a flower. Glorified the service of each hour, had faith in God herself and fellow men. Perchance she never thought in terms of creed. I only know she lived a life indeed. I have carried these words of wit and wisdom throughout my entire life and have worked tirelessly to share with my friends, family, community, and my brothers and sisters throughout the world. I want to thank all of you for honoring my life work. Free at last. Free at last. Thank God Almighty. I'm free at last.
Unfortunately, Senator Elizabeth Warren wasn't able to be with us this morning, but she sent a video along and she really wanted to be here. Let's take a look.
Hi, it's Elizabeth Warren, and thank you for inviting me to join the 50th anniversary of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Breakfast. I'm so sorry I can't be there in person this year, but I'm grateful to still have a chance to speak with all of you. I want to start by thanking A.J. Williams and her team for their tireless work to organize this breakfast and to bring this group together. And I want to congratulate this year's Drum Major awardees, Marvin Gilmore and Charlotte Golar-Ritchie, for being recognized for your outstanding leadership. Every year we come together to honor the legacy of Dr. King. Dr. King was the heart and hope of the civil rights movement. His dream shocked the conscience of a nation, and that is why America was nearly torn apart when he was so tragically taken from us. I was a teenager, but I remember the funeral, the riots, the despair. And over time, America realized that the killer could kill the dreamer, but he could not kill the dream. Dr. King's dream would never die. Over time, more people found their place in the fight. And today, we are the heirs of Dr. King's dream and the soldiers in his fight for justice and equality. His lessons must continue to guide us into the future. More than 50 years ago, Dr. King went to Montgomery and warned us about the danger of division. He talked about how bigotry and race baiting are used to keep Black Americans divided from white Americans so that rich Americans can keep picking all their pockets. We must fight back by seeing each other's fights as our own. And we must continue to fight for Dr. King's dream. We must fight against all the ways that racism still shapes our society, including in our criminal justice system, in housing discrimination, in the Black maternal mortality crisis, in the Black-white wealth gap, in racist voter suppression laws, and so much more. We're up against deep systemic problems, but we can solve them with big structural change, as long as we fight side by side. Thank you.
Our next set of awards were created as a result of the 50th anniversary celebration. This award embodies a strong commitment to social justice, to improving race relations, and to those who've made significant contributions towards the common good by modeling Dr. King's inclusive approach to leadership. I ask that all of this morning's awardees join me on stage as I announce them. To begin, Robert Lewis Jr., Quincy Miller, Lily Thorpe Searcy, and Darnell Williams. To assist with the presentation of the awards, let's welcome back our friend, Shayna Seymour.
Thank you, Attorney General Healy. Now, our first anniversary awardee, Robert Lewis Jr., is a nationally recognized thought leader, public speaker, and passionate advocate for urban youth. He has become well known as a bridge builder between diverse business, civic, and public sectors throughout the country. Robert's impressive career has included important roles with BCYF, National Conference for Community and Justice, City Year Boston, and the Boston Foundation. In 2013, Robert pursued a lifelong dream to launch The Base, with a mission to shift the national mindset about what it takes for urban Black and Latino youth to succeed. The Base leverages the power and passion of baseball to help student athletes and find pathways to success both on and off the field. Leaders have called the Base hands down the best urban baseball program in the country. A Boston Magazine cover story listed Robert among the city's 50 most powerful leaders, calling him a tireless advocate for inner city kids. In addition, Robert is an advisor to Governor Baker, helping to develop Baker's statewide urban agenda. Please give it up for Robert Lewis Jr. As Vice Chair and President of Eastern Bank, our next awardee, Quincy Miller, focuses on helping lead the overall strategic direction of Eastern Bank. Miller began his career in banking more than 20 years ago. Previously, he was president of Citizens Bank, Massachusetts, and president of Citizens Business Banking Division. He has a passion for leading from the front line to ensure his perspective is guided by colleagues with diverse backgrounds and experiences. Congratulations, Quincy Miller. Lily Thorpe Searcy is the CEO of the Haiti B. Cooper Community Center, Inc., a nonprofit founded by the United Methodist Church over 100 years ago. Since 2012, she has transformed the Cooper Center, making a remarkable impact on the development of quality early childhood learning center and enhance the legacy of providing childcare for numerous children and families. Prior to that, Lily served as the executive director of Head Start, as well as the Mattapan site of ABCD. Lily has a 30-year history of success and achievement as a nonprofit human service administrator in Mattapan. Lily's social and economic work was featured in an article by the New York Times. Please welcome Lily Thorpe Searcy. And lastly, Darnell Williams' life of service has made impacts on the lives of people across the Commonwealth. Darnell Williams is the former president and CEO of the Urban League of Eastern Massachusetts. Under Darnell's direction, the Urban League hosted the National Urban League's annual conference in Boston in 2011 after a 35-year absence. Prior to the Urban League, he was manager of management, recruitment, and development at Massachusetts General Hospital. Darnell served as president of the Springfield branch of the NAACP and the NAACP New England Area Conference. Darnell was a contributing member to Boston's successful effort to win the 2004 Democratic National Convention. For his contributions within the Black community and the city of Boston, Mayor Thomas Menino presented him with the 2003 Community Service Award. Congratulations, Darnell Williams. And we are so pleased to honor all 4 of the anniversary awardees for their invaluable contributions. Let's give them one more big round of applause. For the 16th year, the MLK Breakfast Committee is happy to support 8th grade students at Orchard Gardens K-8 Pilot School with the MLK Art Awards. The Breakfast Committee thanks the students and Chris Plunkett for their participation. This year's Art Award recipients are Jaden Murphy and Leilani Pinto, and unfortunately she had to leave early today because she was not feeling well. Let's give them both a round of applause. Next, we present scholarship awardees from 3 Boston public high schools with diverse curriculum and unique programs. We are so grateful to once again partner with Putnam Investments, represented by Stephen Denny. It is because of their generous sponsorship that we are able to award 4 $2,500 scholarships to these deserving and remarkable high school seniors at these schools. The scholarship awardees for this year are Ahija Sharp, Jeremiah E. Burke High School, Cynthia Gonsalves from Jeremiah E. Burke High School, Amira Yaya from Madison Park Technical Vocational High School, Rauli Alberto Fabian Pimento from John D. O'Brien School of Mathematics and Science. Look at this group, congratulations. Finally, I love this. Finally, with the continued support of Delta Dental, we are pleased to recognize the experts and efforts of Roxbury Community College for all it does to sustain primarily communities of color with enriching programs which ultimately contribute to viable environments. At this time, I ask the president of Delta Dental, Dennis Leonard, and Kenley Val, Assistant Dean of Enrollment from RCC, to join us. For their academic excellence at Roxbury Community College in the area of allied health, each awardee will receive $1,500. This year's award recipients are Jackie Amadin, Edie Jackie Amadin, that is, Bianca Lamage, Rhodes St. George, IK Tenadudu, and let us show our appreciation for all the scholars and their achievements. And a many, many congratulations to you all. Now, former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick could not be with us today, but he sent a video we would like to share with all of you.
Good morning, everyone, and happy MLK Day. I'm so sorry I can't be with you this morning, but I do want to share my congratulations with all of the awardees, most especially Marvin Gilmore and Charlotte Golar-Ritchie, so deserving of the recognition that they are receiving today. And I want to just say how much I appreciate everyone once again acknowledging the life and the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. His servant leadership is an example for us all. I think I've told many of you before what it was like for me at 6 or 7 years old to hear Dr. King speak. He was speaking in a park on the south side of Chicago where I grew up, and my mother took my sister and me to hear him. And to this day, I don't remember a single thing he said, but I do remember what it felt like. I remember the sense of solemnity, the sense of hope that all of us, people of limited means, but limitless hope that day were feeling. And right now, as I think about the challenges we face, the progress we've made and how much of it is in jeopardy, the way that we were invited by Dr. King to come together, and today by so many of our leaders to separate and be divided, then we need a King Day right now. We need the spirit of that room, and we need you, each of you, to take that spirit out into the larger world, back to work, back to the neighborhood, back to your homes and kitchen tables, back to your families and schools, and to remind us all that we are stronger when we turn to each other than when we turn on each other. Let's build this beloved community together. God bless you all.
We would be remiss if we did not offer thanksgiving to the one who has ably guided us with poise and dignity during not only this breakfast, but for several breakfasts now, Shayna Seymour of WCVB. Can we express our thanksgiving to her?
Thank you both so much, and thank all of you for allowing me to be a part of this very, very special day. It really, truly does mean the world to me, and there's so many inspiring words from so many people here. And to be a part of this, as I said earlier, it's being a part of history. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah.
And we would also be remiss if we did not express our gratitude to our event planner, AJ Williams, who has worked extraordinarily hard, her and her team, to execute this 50th anniversary celebration in such an amazing way. So might you stand to your feet and thank God for AJ and her team.
I feel like I won a pageant or something with this. All right, well, at this time, Bishop Sudarshana Devadar from the New England Conference of the United Methodist Church will offer the benediction. After the benediction, please join our choir in song with a closing performance of We Shall Overcome. Thank you all so much. Bishop, the stage is yours.
In the name of God, go. Go now to be justice that rolls down like water. In the name of God, go. Go now to be the mighty stream that flows with unstoppable righteousness. In the name of God, go. Go now. Take the dream, nourish it, carry it, proclaim it, and make it true. Children of God, go. Go forth now in peace, with power to be the dream. And the people of God said, amen.
shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Say, we are not afraid. We are not afraid. We are not afraid. We are not afraid today. We